is Saturday evening on this February 23rd out across the Pilbara of Western Australia, and we are closely monitoring the developing tropical low to the north. The latest information from the U.S. Joint Typhoon Warning Center indicates that a tropical cyclone formation alert has been issued, meaning that there is a high chance of cyclone classification within the next 24 hours. The latest forecast track from the Bureau of Meteorology is showing a gradual turn toward the south-southeast. As we work our way into 2 p.m. on Monday, they expect the tropical low to strengthen into a Category 2 cyclone, and therefore cyclone watches have now been issued between Broome extending westward all the way through Karratha. This is a zoomed-in enhanced infrared satellite animation of the tropical low, and just to gain your bearings, this is Broome, Australia, and as we look off toward the west-northwest, the center of circulation is located within this convective mess, and you can see that some of the strongest thunderstorm activity is still far removed from the center of circulation, more so to the west and north of the center. But sometimes looks can be deceiving, and thankfully this afternoon and evening we do have the luxury of using the visible satellite, and you can see here that we are dealing with a vigorous surface low, and over time this surface low is going to help to generate more convective activity near that center of circulation. So overall, this is a positive signature for more development from a developing cyclone in its infancy stages. Here is a look at the precipitable water animation, and you can see the circulation is becoming better defined here over the past 12 to 24 hours, and there is no shortage of moisture. With much of the convection still occurring away from the center of circulation, it's no surprise that some of this activity is working its way into the Kimberley coastline. So we see that Broome is being impacted by some moderate rain this evening, and we think that this is something that could possibly continue despite the fact that the center of circulation is likely to remain offshore for at least another 2 to 2.5 days. Now, as we take a look at some of the other remaining weather charts, this is a look at the low-level vorticity, and this can always help to determine where the greatest concentration of low pressure is near the surface. And roughly 18 hours ago we still had two competing areas of low pressure within the monsoon trough, but over time we have seen a better concentration here just to the north of the Pilbara and west-northwest of Broome, so we are seeing that organization underway. The presence of this strengthening upper-level counterclockwise ridge is also very important to the idea of additional cyclone development. Without this upper-level ridge, all of that rising air associated with the converging surface winds would have nowhere else to go but to sink directly back into the storm. And of course, sinking air does not promote additional convection. So just by having this upper-level ridge, it enhances the equatorward and poleward outflow channels, which is helping to ventilate the system overall. So this is an improving structure for additional intensification. You can already see the enhancement of the outflow channels using the upper-level water vapor imagery. As you look off along the northern semicircle of the tropical low, you see all of these high-level cirrus clouds fanning off towards the north into the equator. And even toward the south, we see this approaching trough, and the flow along and just to the north of this trough is going to be from northwest to southeast. So the poleward outflow channel is going to become even more influential and more obvious on satellite imagery over the next 48 to 72 hours. It's also worth noting that this approaching trough is going to be the main reason why the tropical cyclone decides to turn more so toward the south to southeast over the next 2 to 3 days. The following is a spaghetti model plot, and this just shows a few of the models that we have at our disposal. But one thing that this does show is that we are starting to see better model agreement in terms of the track over the next 72 to 96 hours. As you can see here, many of the models are in agreement with a landfall near or just to the east of Port Hedland in the general vicinity of Padu Station. But I must stress that there is still the chance that the cyclone could make landfall a little bit more toward the east or a little bit more toward the west. And as I will show you in just a second, there are more models than just the ones being shown on this graphic. And for example, the CMC is a little bit more toward the east and a little closer to Broome. So although we have a fairly good model consensus setting up in this area, much of the northern coast of Western Australia still needs to keep a very close watch on this developing tropical low. And even if it does make landfall in this general location very close to Padu Station, the effects could still be far-reaching all along the coastline. One of the more accurate models is the ECMWF model, and this is the latest run that has become available within the last 1 to 2 hours. And you can see as we work our way into late Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, The ECMWF is showing a severe tropical cyclone landfall just east of Port Hedland near Padu Station, and this is not a good scenario for anyone near or along 80 Mile Beach. As you can see, some of the strongest winds are going to be located just to the east of the center of circulation with these onshore northerly winds, and along with these very destructive winds there will be the risk of dangerous sea level water rise and the effect of storm surge, and this is not going to be a place that you would like to be, and hopefully everyone living along here is beginning to make their cyclone precautions and be ready to evacuate if you happen to be anywhere along the coastline. Port Hedland, you would still definitely be receiving some rough weather, but in terms of the storm surge, as long as the center of circulation goes to the east, then we would see more in the way of offshore winds. But again, this is still a very fluid situation, and the center could deviate a little bit more toward the east or a little bit more toward the west. This is the latest look at the 0Z run of the Canadian CMC model, and as we can see here, the CMC is actually a bit quicker with the tropical cyclone landfall, and it's also much more toward the east, just to the southwest of Broome. So all interests along the Kimberly coast, this model solution gives you enough reason to pay very close attention to the progress of this storm. The CMC does represent the easternmost solution at this time, but if it were to verify, you would definitely be feeling the effects of the storm and potentially some of the highest storm surge values, again with it being just to the east of the eye. So this is still something that we do not want to dismiss at this time. And our third model update comes from the American GFS, and again we are seeing yet another model showing a landfall between Port Hedland and Broome. As we work our way into late Monday night into Tuesday morning, the center of circulation is quickly approaching the coastline. So although the European model is showing a landfall early Wednesday morning, the other models are still staying on track with the idea that this is going to be coming in mainly sometime during the day or evening on Tuesday. And even if it did come in Wednesday morning, interests along the coastline need to realize that the effects of the storm will be far-reaching. Therefore, you will start to feel the squall line and outer bands well before the center crosses the coast. In summary, I feel as though the latest forecast information from the Bureau of Meteorology is on track based on the latest model updates that have become available within the last few hours. I think that the cyclone watch is definitely warranted from Broome westward all the way through Karratha, although I think the chances of a cyclone landfall that far to the west are unlikely. But even if it comes in near or just east of Port Hedland, you will still likely encounter some gusty winds and squally conditions as we work our way into the day on Tuesday. Interests along 80 Mile Beach, including Pardue Station and westward into Port Hedland, need to be bracing now for a severe cyclone landfall, as the storm will likely intensify beyond a Category 2 as we work our way into the day on Tuesday. And for interests all along the Kimberly coast, even including Broome, you should also still be paying attention to the storm in the event that it takes that more easterly solution as being depicted by the Canadian CMC, although we are still favoring a slightly more western track at this time. But interests out there along the east also need to consider that there is less room for error out there, because the strongest part of the storm is likely going to be near and just to the east of the eye, which is where the strong northerly winds are going to set up. So 80 Mile Beach and any low-lying areas within this watch needs to be ready for that increasing sea level water rise. We will have more video updates posted at 28storms.com/cyclone. And if you happen to use Facebook, we are posting frequent updates at facebook.com/28storms. And we also highly encourage you to follow some of our partners, especially Oz Cyclone Chasers. As you can see up here, they have a very strong following from Australia. And also Pilbara Weather is going to become an increasingly important role for information that is being dispersed from the northern Western Australia coastline, and we will see what they have to post, especially as the storm is making landfall. The owner of that page, in fact, is likely going to be chasing the storm in the event that it heads off toward Port Hedland. So all three of our networks are going to be providing you with the latest information as the event continues to unfold.